Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Sweden and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel many times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the last couple of years. They are still a relatively new addition to the Swedish beer scene, but I think it is most definitely fair to say that this brewery are best known for their different kinds of New England hazy, whatever you want to call them, IPAs. But more recently, they have been diversifying a little bit and trying different things. But the beer we're going to have a look at today is one of their latest releases through Systembolaget here in Sweden. It is a little bit different compared to some of the other ones they've done in recent times, but it is a style that I know these guys can do very, very well. So needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this one is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head to Örebro, which is out to the west of Stockholm, and we're going to have a look at another beer from Apex Brewing Company. So this particular beer is called Conflicting Ideas. It comes in at 8% ABV, and this is yet another New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA. Now, this beer was released as part of the Lokalt och Småskaligt assortment through Systembolaget here in Sweden for March of 2023, but unfortunately I didn't have time to review this one before I went to Japan, mainly because of technical issues. But yeah, New England Double IPA, 8% ABV. We've had this style from them many times before and we know they can do it very well, but this is also brewed as a collaboration with Craft Company from here in Sweden, who supply a lot of their kind of malts and things like this from what I understand, and also HVG German hops. So this is an all German hopped New England Double IPA, so that is a wee bit different from compared to what we've had from Apex in the past. But you know, I love my German hops. There are some very interesting things going on down in Germany in hop development just now, so I think this is quite a cool one to take a look at. I didn't realise this actually when I ordered it, I just wanted the new Apex IPA. But yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see what it's going to have in store for us. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Apex Brewing Company before, and we will no doubt add more to that list in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated. And remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer based on the geography tagging system. So just go to the search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, whatever you like in there. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries, and you'll find this one in the Swedish playlist along with many other things. And there are playlists for a number of other countries there too, of course. So yeah, let's crack on then and go on to my brewery notes, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Apex Brewing Company once again. So, Apex Brewing Company were originally based in Nora, which is a little bit to the north of Örebro, and Örebro can be found out to the west of Stockholm, as I said earlier. But these guys were founded back in 2017 by Daniel Gatchitz and Niklas Lundgren. So both of these guys are musicians, with Niklas having played in the band 59 Times the Pain, while Daniel played in a band called The Voice of a Generation. But Daniel and Niklas are responsible for the brewing side of things at Apex Brewing Company, but there are a few others involved in the company as well. This is Leif Karlsson, Ola Eriksson, and then Roger Helm, and these guys take care of all the different aspects of the business from what I understand. But they started off with a small 500 litre brew kit and 6 fermentation tanks, and initially they were just selling their beer in the local area before they got it into Systembolaget. And the first beer they released, if I remember correctly, was back in about 2017, and that was the single hop, which appears again every so often. Just a single hop Citra New England IPA, but it is great, so try it if you get the chance. But in 2018 they brewed around 35,000 litres of beer and released 25 different varieties, pretty much all of which were New England Hazy IPAs, and the following year in 2019 they expanded and they brewed about 120,000 litres. Over the following years they continued to develop new recipes, build up their sales and distribution and things like this, but then in summer of 2021 they announced that they were going to move to a new premises in the Baytorp district of Örebro in the autumn, and they did that. And at this point they upgraded their 500 litre brew kit to a 2,000 litre system and added several new tanks in there. And again, since they moved there, they've just continued to develop new recipes. They've also started brewing a few lagers and a few other kind of things as well, which is quite interesting to see them do. and we will be doing a slightly different style of beer from these guys in a few videos time, so keep your eyes peeled for that. But yeah, these guys, one of the kind of darlings, I guess you could say, of the Swedish beer scene. Everyone likes the New England IPAs from Apex Brewing, and as I say, they're getting more and more popular across Europe. So yeah, as of April 2023, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 150 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and like I said to you, the vast majority of these are different kinds of New England hazy IPAs. But they've been doing a few different lagers and things over the last year and a half, something like that. But yeah, definitely one of the Swedish breweries that I recommend you check out should you get the chance. But yeah, I think that is everything we really need to say about Apex Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can of course check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on then and actually have a look at the beer itself. So this one is an 8% New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA, as we said earlier. It's brewed only with German hops and as a collaboration with HVG German hops, or is it HGV? HVG, sorry, I've written that wrong in the notes. HVG Heavy Goods Vehicle. That's probably where I'm getting that from. But yeah, HVG German hops, and also Craft Company in Sweden, who I believe are one of their main suppliers of malts and things like this. But the hops used in here are Tango, Kalista, Hallertau Blanc, and German-grown Amarillo. I have encountered all of these hops before, other than Tango, if memory serves me correctly. I had a Kalista Pilsner from Overtone in Glasgow, actually, which was quite an interesting one. But to tell you a little bit about Kalista, Kalista obviously is a German hop with about 3.5% alpha acid. It's supposed to give you apricot and passion fruit and berries in it. But Tango, as I say, I've not come across this one. This hop is German again, and it was developed back in 2011, derived from Cascade and Hallertau tradition. It gives you between 9 to 12% alpha acid and flavours and aromas of passion fruit, grapefruit, and a little bit of a lemony citrus too. Hallertau Blanc we know quite well. That's about 11% alpha acid normally, and it gives you this lovely kind of white, green, grapey sort of thing. It's almost like the European answer to New Zealand's Nelson Sauvin. And German-grown Amarillo, we know Amarillo very well, one of my favourite hops back in the day, about 12% alpha acid, gives you this lovely big oily orangey note, but of course because it's grown in Germany, different water profiles, different soil profiles, you are going to get some slightly different characters out of this one, so I'm quite curious about that as well. I don't know if I've had German-grown Amarillo before. I know I've seen Amarillo kind of pick up a little bit in recent times with different breweries in Europe. So I do wonder how much of that has been the German one, because you know hops seem to go in peaks and troughs. I think it just depends on the harvests, of course. But yeah, that's a little info on all the different hops there. Let's just get this guy out and we'll have a wee look. But you can have a wee look at the artwork on this one before we open it up. There you can see there's a nice moose head on it this time. You can see the Apex Brewing Company symbol underneath. You can see their usual slogans of music, beer and people. And there's another one of the Apex Brewing Company symbols there. Plain silver top on the can there. Like I said earlier, this one was released as part of the local Småskalig for March of 2023, and I believe I paid about 55 Swedish kronor for this can. So that's about €5, 55 pounds sterling, probably somewhere in the region of like $6 American. So very good price for what it is. But yeah, let's get this guy out into the glass and we'll see what it's all about. So, let's do this. I do have some very nice Swedish and Danish beers waiting for me. So when I was in Japan, I was looking forward to getting back and having a look at some of these. But unfortunately, I never filming these March releases a little bit later, just because my phone that I normally film on died. So yeah, still waiting to get that fixed, unfortunately. But we'll see how that goes. But anyway, you can see that this beer is poured pretty much as you would expect of a New England IPA of any description. So yeah, before the head disappears on this one, you can see that it's come out with about a half finger of a frothy, I would say kind of perfect white head in there. You can see kind of medium sized bubbles actually. So it does look pretty good. But you can see the colour of this one, for me, I think on the camera it looks a little bit darker to you guys, but it's got a lovely, very bright yellow note to it, this one. Good little bit of like mango juice, I would say. Always these New England IPAs, their appearance always reminds me of different fruit juices. So remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. 2, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging you do or adjuncts you put in will affect the colour too, but you don't often have to care about those variables when it comes to IPAs of any description. The level of haze in this one, this actually does strike me as one of the slightly more soupy and gloopy New England IPAs that I've come across from Apex. So remember, haze depends on the oat content, wheat content, and to a degree what yeast you use. But yeah, it can vary from brewery to brewery and beer to beer. There's not too much in the way of visible carbonation in this one. 1 or 2 bubbles going up toward the bottom of the head there, which has incidentally faded away to be a kind of thinner, foamier layer. But yeah, it looks pretty nice, I have to say. I do like how this one goes together, but nothing particularly surprising about this beer in terms of its appearance when you consider what style it is. So yeah, let's have a wee look at the nose on this one and see what it's all about. I'm very, very curious about this beer. Oh yeah, been a wee while since we've had an Apex New England IP, but this does smell pretty damn nice. So first impression of this one is, as you often get with Apex, a good blend between the oat and the wheat and things like that. As I say, there's 6 elements you should think about when it comes to New England IPA flavours, but we'll come to that in a wee second. But nice kind of bright green component to it, lovely juicy fruitiness in there. The fruity character smells a wee bit more kind of oily and stuff like that. So yeah, quite interesting. But as I say, there are 6 elements I think you should consider when it comes to New England IPAs. So there is the kind of farmhousey, yeasty type character. There's the rye leaning, grainy side of things. Those 2 elements are a bit more common in American brewed New England IPAs, I would say. But then you also have the wheaty bitiness, the barley malt bread, the oaty creaminess, and the sweeter side of things. And yeah, you should think about how all these elements kind of go together. So for me, this beer's showing you a little bit of everything. So it's more that, I mean, Apex always they always tend to be a bit more wheaty and a bit more oaty, to be honest with you. But this one, I can smell a bit of both the wheat and the oat. I think those are the 2 most prominent notes. But let's kind of break down the aroma and just describe it for you a wee bit more in depth, as we always do. So, for me, the backbone of this beer, as always, is a little bit of a kind of fresh, white bready bread crust. Backbone of the beer. 1 or 2 little woody elements in there, a good little bit of a kind of Jacob's cream cracker character as well, and then above that you have a little bit of a soft kind of white bready note to this one, definitely. So yeah, Jacob's cream bread crust, little touch of woodiness, Jacob's cream cracker, and then above that there are elements of the kind of fluffy white bread in there. So yeah, the aroma from the malty side of things is quite nice. The more and more that I smell of this beer though, the more wheat I get out of it. In the back of the nose, there is absolutely a good little bit of that more, there's a good little bit of that more wheaty, bitey sort of thing. So yeah, curious to see if that's going to transpire in the flavour. But above the bready notes, you start to get the oats and wheat out of the beer. So you can smell that the wheat has a little bit of zip to it, and you can smell that it's densifying out the white bready characteristics. So yeah, above that one you can start to smell the oaty characters in this beer. And as I've always said, oaty character in a New England IPA is quite often a good indicator of how fresh your beer actually is. So yeah, basically the creamier the oats smell and taste, the fresher the beer is, the drier they are, the older the beer is. So there's a little bit of dryness in this one, and we do have to remember, I'm reviewing this beer maybe about 6 weeks or something like that, 7 weeks after it was released through Systembolaget. So this beer probably isn't in its freshest condition, but you know, the Apex beers can hold up quite nicely. But yeah, as I say, not in its prime freshness actually. But yeah, you can smell a good little bit of oaty creaminess in there. You've got a good little bit, you've got a little touch of the oaty dryness as well. The creaminess in this one has held up quite well, I have to say. But on top of that, you've got a little element of sweetness in there. There's a little touch of McVitie's digestive biscuit and a little bit of a kind of butter candy, butterscotchy type thing as well. So yeah, the way that goes together in this one is really quite nice. You do get a little element of sweetness in there. But yeah, I think that covers everything we need to say about the malty and yeasty side of things in this one. in terms of the green component then, as I've said, it's, this has got quite a bright green component to it. So one of the things you have to think about are the 3 types of hoppings you use in IPAs. So assuming you have a 90-minute wort boil for the purposes of the time scale, you have early addition hopping within the first hour of the wort boil. That gives you mainly bitterness. Late addition hopping within the last half hour of the wort boil, a little bit of bitterness, but mainly flavour and aroma. Dry hopping after the wort boil is complete, that's all about flavour and aroma. So New England IPAs tend to rely on the latter 2, late addition and dry, whereas West Coast IPAs use all 3. Now, what that tends to give you in the aroma is more deep depth and dankness with early addition hopping, and that dominates. Whereas if you've got late addition and dry hopping, it gives you a more bright character, which is obvious in New England IPAs. But yeah, for me, the green component in this one, there's a little touch of earthiness there, and it's quite a smooth earthiness, which is typical of the German noble hops. There's a wee bit of a herbal kind of character coming out of this one as well. But then you've got a nice kind of bright floral aromaticity and a good little touch of zesty grassiness in there. One of the things I always find that's quite interesting with German hops, such as Mandarin of Bavaria, of course, was the first higher alpha acid one I would have come across, then Hallertau Blanc a little bit later, and then, you've got Zafir and all of and Tango and Calista and all of these things in there. So they always, the green component always is, it gives you that smooth earthiness and the wee touch of herbal character that you always get. The green component of these hops is always quite obviously German, I have to admit. Or at least that, in my opinion. You guys might disagree. Beer is always subjective, as you know. But on top of the green component, you've got the fruity character in there. So for me, it is very, very nice, this one. Very well rounded. You can certainly smell the kind of oily gooseberry notes from the Hallertau Blanc and the kind of more oily orange. And it smells a little bit more zesty, actually. You get the zesty kind of orange in there. There's a wee touch of the lemony character as well that we were talking about from the Tango. But not too much, I would say. So yeah, gooseberry, a lot of orange, a little bit of an orangey kind of tango note. And then behind that, you've got typical kind of tropical notes from the Calista. You can certainly get the apricot from the Calista. That's quite obvious. But then there is a wee bit of a kind of juicy passion fruit. I'm not getting much in the way of grapefruit, which is interesting, and that was something you were supposed to get from Tango. But yeah, passion fruit, mango, apricot definitely. As I say, that oily gooseberry thing from the Hallertau Blanc, and the more zesty orange from the I was going to say the Mandarin Bavaria, the Amarillo, and then yeah, you've got a little bit of a kind of lemony zesty character coming out of this one as well, which is again supposed to be from the Tango. Yeah, it's a really interesting aroma, this one, I have to say. So, yeah, as I always say, take a wee bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But I think it is about time that we taste this one and see what it's all about. So let's do this. This is the Conflicting Ideas, an 8% New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA, from the wonderful Apex Brewing Company in Örebro here in Sweden. Let's get stuck in. Slange, skål, cheers. Oh yeah, that's pretty damn nice, I have to say. Getting a wee bit, just getting a wee bit of that going down the wrong way. But yeah, first impression of this one, very creamy, quite tropical leaning actually, but you get more and more citrusy character out of it the further into the aftertaste you go, and quite a bright green component once again. But yeah, I think that's pretty damn solid actually, and I'm not surprised, you know, Apex Brewing Company, we know they can do this style very, very well. So yeah, definitely worth just keeping that in mind with this brewery. These guys really know what they're doing when it comes to the New England IPAs. Yeah, I like this one. It gets more and more bitter as well the further into the aftertaste you go. So yeah. Let's break this down though and just describe it for you a wee bit more in depth. So, yeah, in terms of the middle, in terms of the middle third of your profile, of your palate with this one, not your profile, middle third of your palate, you can feel the backbone of the beer is absolutely that kind of fresh, white bready bread crust with this one. I find this beer's got a little touch more graininess and dryness to it than I remember other Apex ones having, but yeah, that's quite interesting. So yeah, good little bit of kind of more bread crusty character in there. Further forward in that middle third of the palate, there's a wee touch of woodiness in there, and then above that you've got a little bit of a Jacob's cream crackery note. So yeah, the way that goes together is quite nice. Yeah. On the on top of the kind of cream, on top of the kind of cream crackery note, you start to get the bready characters out of this beer. I think there's a little touch of a kind of wholemeal, brown bready note coming out of this one. Just get a little bit of that. Then you get the fluffier white bread sitting on top. And then you can feel the wheaty, the sort of more dense wheaty character just sitting above that. So yeah, I like that with this one. Yeah. Yeah, and that goes together very, very nicely, I have to say. Yeah, so I like the layers in this one. Bread crust, cracker, little bit of wood in there, brown bread, a thicker, more fluffy white bread in there, and then the denser, more wheaty layer. And above that you start to get the oats. Now the oats are quite interesting in this one because they do still come across as being quite creamy. Like if you go down the middle line of your tongue, you absolutely get some of that nice kind of creamy oaty character. And as you move out toward the edges of that middle third of your palate, you've got a little bit of a more, you definitely have a wee bit of the more kind of oaty dryness coming out of the beer. But in the dead centre of your palate, you can feel there's a little bit of a kind of sweet element to this one. So it's got a little bit of that Werther's original butter candy, butterscotchy sort of thing, and then a McVitie's digestive biscuity character to it as well, which I do really like. Yeah. On the yeah, so the McVitie's digestive biscuity character there just kind of spreads out a wee bit. As I say, you get a little bit more kind of oaty dryness out of this beer the further into the aftertaste that you go, and that's probably the product of the beer not being in its freshest prime condition, if you like to say. But it's still, the creaminess in this one has held up very, very nicely. Actually, I do like this. It's a slightly more grainy and bread crusty beer this compared to the other Apex ones, but I think that covers what we need to say about the middle third of the palate in this one. So the border region between middle and front, middle and back third of your palate, you've got a nice little bit of a kind of bready build up in there, a little bit of a kind of white bready character, but then the base of that back third of your palate is a little bit more kind of, you've got a little bit more bread crusty grainy character in there, and it is a little bit drier. As I've always said, more dry and bitter flavours come out further back on the palate, whereas sweeter and juicier flavours and stuff come out a little bit further forward. So yeah, the bread crust is a little bit drier. Above that, you've got a wee bit more of the kind of Jacob's cream crackery note as well, and then you have a little bit more. You've got a little bit of a more kind of wholemeal brown bready character in there. So as I say, I do like how that goes together. Above that, you've got the fluffier white bready character as well, and these two layers, as I say, they are similar in flavour, but they just feel a little bit lighter and more airy. And you can feel above that you have the kind of wheaty bitiness coming out of the beer, and then there's the yeasty characters on top of that. So let's just take a wee look at the yeasty characters coming out of this beer. So above that, you have a little bit of the yeasty character that's coming out of this one. It's got a little bit of a kind of farmhousey note to it. So yeah, a little bit of a kind of farmhousey, brown bready yeasty sort of thing. for me, it's actually quite a grainy and dry, woody type bready character that the yeast is giving you in this beer, so that's quite interesting. But yeah, you get more, as I say, you get more and more dryness and graininess out of this beer the further into the aftertaste you go. But definitely back third of the palate, you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you come further forward into the middle third of the palate, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together a little bit more. So yeah, interesting stuff. On the hoppy side of things, then, back corners of the palate, there is actually a good little bit of earthiness to this one, which I wasn't quite expecting, but as you move further forward, there's a wee bit of herbal character, and it just gets progressively more kind of floral and spicy as you move further forward, actually. So you can feel more and more spicy character coming out of this one, which is interesting. So yeah. Round the front curve of the palate, there's a little bit of a lighter, grassy sort of thing, a wee bit more zesty as well. And yeah, that's quite interesting. But this beer does actually have a little bit of a more kind of deep, dank character to it than I thought it was going to. Maybe they have used a wee bit more early edition hop in this one compared to some other ones that Apex have done in the past. But yeah, I like that. In terms of the malt, the fruity side of this beer, then we'll need to look at the front third of the palate. So the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get a little bit of kind of white bready build up in there, but still the base of that front third of your palate, you've got a wee bit more of a bread crust. You've got a little bit of a more kind of bread crusty character coming out of it. You have a wee touch of a more you've got a wee bit more bread crusty character, a little bit of kind of Jacob's cream cracker, then the smooth white bread, and then you get that nice juicy bubble where the fruity juicy esters just roll their way out of the beer. So yeah, the way that that goes together is really quite nice. So yeah, I think that's it. So the fruity juicy esters on this beer. At the back of that front third of your palate, you absolutely do get a little bit of grapefruit. It wasn't really picking that up in the aroma, but in the flavour, you do get that. As I say, that's the tango that's going to give you that. And when you move further forward, you get a little bit. The grapefruit actually takes a little bit of time to mellow out, but you do get a wee bit of the passion fruit in there. And as you reach the middle of that front third of your palate, there's a little bit of mango in there and a wee bit of apricot. But the grapefruit presence in this one is quite strong. And to be fair, I'm not surprised at that, because obviously the tango is a big 11% alpha acid hop, so yeah, kind of makes sense, to be honest. But yeah, on top of that, you have when you move further forward from that into the front half of the front third of your palate, there is a little bit, you can feel the kind of oily gooseberry type notes from the Hallertau Blanc, which I do like. Above that, you have a little bit of the kind of zesty, oily orange, but not too much. I think the kind of oily orangey character out of this one is a little bit more. It's not quite as big as I would have normally expected from Amarillo. I just don't find that this beer has too big an orangey presence to it. But behind the front tip of the tongue, there is a little bit of that kind of lemony, zesty sort of thing, which will come from the tango as well. So yeah, I'm getting a lot of the Hallertau Blanc and a lot of the tango, but I don't feel this beer is... The Calista's in there, but I think the Calista's maybe taking a bit of a back seat until the aftertaste. But like I say, I don't get too much Amarillo-y character out of this, which is interesting. But I mean, when you take the beer in fairness, you will get a wee bit more orangey character out of it, and that would be your Amarillo. So yeah, I think the Amarillo comes in at the start, but then fades away a little bit more, and you get more of the Hallertau Blanc into the aftertaste, and the tango is kind of the most punchy one in this, and Calista is giving you a wee bit more depth. Maybe that's probably a good way to kind of summarise what the hops are actually doing. But still, everything goes together very well, and this is what we've come to expect from Apex. But I would say that generally speaking, this one's a little bit more grainy than some of the other ones I've had from them, and it also feels a little bit more bitter, to be honest with you as well. So I think this is probably a good point to go on and round off with the mouthfeel. So for me, this beer is at the kind of top end. It's kind of at the top end of mid-bodied, maybe put bottom end of full-bodied, Carbonation is quite smooth. It's got a little bit of a wetness to it, but a wee touch of a more kind of smooth mouthfeel at the same time, a little bit smoother and more creamy. IBU wise, I think this one's maybe about 50-ish IBUs. I think it just feels that little bit more bitter, so maybe about 50-ish IBUs this one. The malt base, as we said, has a bit of graininess and dryness to it, a bit of smooth bready character there, a little touch of sweetness as well, and yeah, there's a little bit of sweetness. In terms of the fruitiness, it's interesting, this one. It's got the oily gooseberries, there's a wee touch of orange in the beginning, but I think it leans more toward the gooseberry and the kind of more tropical fruits a little bit later on, but you have got quite a pungent grapefruity character to this one too, which I find quite interesting. So yeah, interesting stuff, this beer, I have to say. But I think we can leave it at that for this one. Another very, very solid New England Double IPA from Apex Brewing Company. We wouldn't expect any less of them, to be honest. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that. This was the Conflicting Ideas, an 8% New England Double IPA with all German hops, and a little bit more bitter and grainy, I think, than some of the other Apex beers that I remember having. So yeah, we can leave it at that. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Apex Brewing Company as well, and we will no doubt return to these guys again at some point in the very near future. But until then, Slàinte, Skål, cheers, and I'll see you guys in the next review. Cheers.